go on.
So Kyle, are you in control, or how do we switch to our slides now? How do we switch to our slides now? Ah, okay.
Her sisters. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. We are going to try to get going so that, because we do have a lot to cover today. I'm Sam Woods. I'm supposedly, or kind of, the head of the Watershed Council, which is now, the Watershed Council is really kind of three groups. It's the town, the village, and the CLA. And we put this on every year. This is actually our 18th year of having this. We've calculated, I think we first started having these annual summits in 2007. And we've got, again, a lot to cover. I'm gonna kind of go over what we call our rake toss study. And we do this every year, and it's just like it sounds for the people who haven't come to these summits. And I apologize for the people who know all of this already, but they literally go around to over 300 sites, toss a rake, bring the weeds up onto the boat, count all the different species of weeds, and come up with these tables. And again, I hope you guys can see it, but it goes way back to 2009 where they started doing these. And I think we actually did them a little bit prior to that. I'm gonna focus in on kind of these last years. Yellow is the chemical called Renovate that we used from 2009 up to 2019. And that was the last year of Renovate. And then a chemical called Procelacor came along. And Procelacor was less expensive, and according to all the studies that have been done out there, also very specific for milfoil, which Renovate was also. It doesn't kill the natural weeds in the lake. It really just kills milfoil. And we started using that in 2021, and it was definitely more effective than the Renovate that we used. And we did that after 2 years, okay? So this is a non-treatment year, this is a treatment year. First time we used it, 2021, and it really knocked it down. And if you guys, can you guys see the numbers here? Pretty much, sort of, okay. So in 2021, this last column here is medium to dense milfoil still present. And there wasn't any. They actually found no sites where milfoil was present. And in terms of just light milfoil, or at least they saw milfoil in the sample, was 8%. And this data from year to year is amazingly consistent, okay? So the next year, medium to dense was 4%, and then the third year of not, again, the second year of not treating, it was 29%. And so we made the decision as the Watershed Council, the town and the CLA, we made the decision that, gee, you know, because of the cost of these chemicals, we should probably go every 3 years. And that's basically what we're trying to figure out now. So the important thing to know is that next year is gonna be another non-treatment year, so that will be out here. And we're just gonna have to see, can we have a pretty good lake without milfoil? It's gonna be worse than this year and obviously worse than a treatment year, but can it be pretty decent? And we can now go every 3 years with this. And so that's where we're at. Questions? Yeah.
Core also promotes the 3-year, just so that it isn't just,
Right.
I just wanted to add.
Because it's more effective and it seems to last longer.
Yeah,
But we're not, again, none of this is ingrained in stone. It looks like this is what we're gonna be able to do, but we're just gonna, again, have to see how it goes in all these different years.
Sam, I think one important point is if you look at, go back one.
Yep.
If you look at, you compare it renovate, right? This was the second year of non-treatment.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great
That
point.
compares favorably to basically the third summer.
Yeah.
The second summer without, with Cazenovia.
So with
So we're kind of in the same
Core
spot.
in that, yeah, in the second non-treatment year, we're doing just as good as Renovate did in the year after treatment. And it looks like that's gonna bear out again this year. And visually, I'm just gonna fast forward here, because again, we've got so much to cover today. So here's 2023, starting to get some pretty dense milfoil around the lake, especially at the north and south end. Now we treat, and you can see it really knocks down the renovate, or not the renovate, really knocks down the milfoil. Here we are this year, you start to see it coming back, especially along that west shore. And we'll just have to see. Okay. It's definitely one of the things we're gonna try to tailor make, and Jimmy Gollop's gonna talk to this more, is we'll try to tailor make using the harvester to get some of these heavier areas next year. You're up, Jimmy.
Thanks, Sam. At this time last year, we were trying to come up with a boat law. And our goal was to have it done before the season started. We didn't quite make that goal, but we did have a new boat law in June. I think it was mid-June. So there were boats on the lake that had been launched prior to the law. So this year, we have the law in place. We hope to have better compliance. We have an understanding on this law that people are no longer launching boats from their own property. We're going to launch at the sites. While there's some perennial problems with illegal marinas, the problems had improved since the year before now that we have this law. And we also hope to quell any further proliferation of illegal marinas. And there were some that people were talking about and they did not come to fruition. If anybody sees anything that is a violation of the law, we hope that you make a formal complaint to the town. I'm gonna talk about septic inspections. There's 5 districts, and every 5 years, people are supposed to have their septic tanks. If you live around the lake, you're supposed to have your septic tanks inspected. In the past, we sent out a letter, this is years ago, and we just kind of, it was the honor system. We hoped that people did it. And we're finding out that we send a follow-up letter that those that did not comply, Connie and Sue at the town office are right on top of this. So anybody who doesn't comply gets a second letter, and then we have a final letter that goes out with mention of the $750 fine. So we're trying to, our then new supervisor 2 years ago made this, something that we really wanna be more diligent about. So I would ask you to be patient, because it's gonna take 5 years to go through the system. There were 39 parcels which were not on the list, that kinda slipped through the cracks. So it's gonna take the 5 years to get through the system before everybody gets this letter, and we really hope we have better compliance. Last topic I wanna go over, Sam talked about harvesting. Last year, we bought a new harvester, and we sold the old one to Owasco. No, what's the name of it? Otisco Lake, I'm sorry, I was getting mixed up. Otisco Lake, they really desperately needed one. So we got pretty much our asking price for that harvester, and last year we started with a new harvester. We spent 22 days harvesting last summer, 7 days to the south, 15 days to the north. We got 113 loads, which is average for a year or two with Priscillicor. We know that we need to spend more time on the lake this coming year. We're entering the 3rd year, and as Sam said, we're expecting more weeds. We've circled this on the calendar, we know about it, it's very predictable. So we're going to start harvesting, if all goes as planned, we're gonna start harvesting in mid-June, which is almost a month before we started last year. And so that'll help us get a good start. And we also have a full staff at the highway garage, at least right now we do. And we hope that that will be the case in the spring. Last year we were shorthanded, that created challenges. And we're also gonna focus on 2 dates, Labor Day and the 4th of July. Yes, we will be harvesting throughout the season, but those 2 dates we've sort of circled, and we're gonna try to have the lake cleaned up on those days. Now I say we're gonna try, and I'm being very careful not to make promises, because, you know, we could have a cataclysmic event, like the storms they had in Rome last year were really quite damaging. If that were to happen, that's not that far away, if that were to happen here, our focus is gonna be on cleaning up the roads, keeping the roads open. So, you know, we could have, what if we didn't have full strength at the highway garage, or what if we had big mechanical difficulties with the harvester? So I don't wanna make promises, but our goal is to be on the lake more, and if there's gonna be more weeds, we're gonna have to harvest more. So that's all I have. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer. Okay, thank you.
Oh, here's your update, Jimmy.
Oh.
So I'm Cindy Bell, I am the village trustee. I wasn't the Parks Commissioner this year, but I am on the Lake Association, so I guess that gives me reason to be up here today representing the village. A picture I took the other day from the plane, actually, flying into Syracuse. Okay, so the village of Cazenovia has 2 lakes along the, two parks along the lake. For those who have trouble remembering them, we have Lakeland with the sand and Lakeside with the slide. At Lakeland Park, which is the one right in the village at the end of Albany Street, activities as I show here are summer recreation, public swimming. The village hires the lifeguards from the end of June through August. Kayak and stand-up paddleboard launch area, if you don't know, is over by Carpenter's Barn along the lake outlet channel. And there's also racks there. You can get a permit from the village to put your kayaks or stand-up paddleboards there. There's benches, picnic tables, and a place to enjoy the lake. What's new at the park though, we've already had 2 projects there where we rebuilt the wall along the lake, along the channel, along the front of the lake, through the swim area. Next year, we're gonna start, and actually this fall, we're gonna start working on our next project, and it's the improvement to the parking lot. It's gonna include the new parking lot in yellow, a couple more additional parking spaces. The purple color is both showing a concrete sidewalk and the modular plaza, pavement plaza down by the end of down close to the lake. The red are seat walls, that's gonna be a little low wall there, and there's gonna be seats built into the wall, so you can sit and look at the lake. The pier is going to be repointed, and, there's gonna be new landscaping. Along with this, you can see some drainage inlets right here, there's gonna be, a swell, so they're gonna also try to regrade it and drain it, so it's not all, right now it kind of all goes to the lake, especially in a good storm, the water, the runoff from Albany Street down the parking area, so, and it kind of washes away the beach at times, so we're trying to prevent that and keep all that stuff going into the lake. At this point, we have a contractor to do the work. They are working now to get a or the designer of this, which was Matt Vredenberg, is working, and I think he secured the DEC permit, which is gonna be put in place this year. So the coffer dam should be in place this year, which will allow the contractor to do the pier work earlier next spring, which is good. Most of next year, or all of next year, will be the reconstruction of this, which will impact some of the summertime activities, but we're gonna try to do our best to keep that to a minimum. And it should be done by the end of next year, maybe early 2027. And it was mostly done by grant money, that was secured by CACTA. So that's Lakeland. Lakeside, as you probably know, is the public boat launch, kayaks, canoes, and stand-up paddleboard racks. We have the triathlon there every year, picnic pavilions, a baseball field and playground. So at Lakeside Park, we have the boat launch, as I said. The boat launch is overseen by the boat stewards, who are also hired by the village. The boat stewards check the boats coming in and out of the lake, or mostly going into the lake, for invasive species to keep out the foreign animals and plant life that we don't want in the lake. So that seems to help a lot. Boat passes are required for the boat launch. As you probably know, anybody can get a pass. You just have to get one to go on the lake. It's not just for village and county and town residents. So our passes were actually over 650 passes, not 750 this year. When I say it's 1,800 recorded boats at the launch, that's just boats going in and out. Some of them were seasonal, where they go in the spring, come out in the fall. Some of them, people come, the rest are, some of them are daily use, so you have people that come every day, the stewards say, and use the lake. They come from all over, central New York, Utica, Pennsylvania. It seems to be about the farthest. One very successful thing that I think that Tom Tate started when he was in charge of Parks and Recreation, was they zip tie. When the boats come out of the lake, the stewards will zip tie where the hitch is, so that if you don't take your boat off the trailer, yeah. Then the stewards know the last lake it was in was Cazenovia, and they said about 72% of the boats coming in were those type of boats. So that's good. So the boats keep getting, a lot of them do just come back to our lake and don't wander to other places, which is a good thing. I think that's the update that I have. Not a lot, not as technical or interesting as Jimmy's, I don't think. I think the town is doing more, but we only own a small portion of the lake, so. Anybody have questions?
The park improvement at Lakeside, how was that, Lakeland, how was that gonna impact activities at the pavilion, will they still go on, or?
I think they'll still go on, there's not a lot of, activities there.
Yes,
These days.
so what we're trying to do, as Cindy mentioned, we hope to get the cofferdam in this fall, so we don't have to wait
Right.
for the end of the fish breeding season. So we hope to get that in this fall, so we can get right out and do the work in the water, repointing the pier and any, reconstruction of the pier that needs to be done. And we'll probably take a little bit of a pause during the core part of the summer,
Right.
so that we won't interrupt swim season and a lot of the peak park use like July 4th. And then we'll pick up maybe late August as things start to slow down and get into the terrestrial improvements of the parking lot, and the lower area where we're gonna have, as Cindy noted, it's gonna be really beautiful. And so if those of us who've been parents and had kids swimming there, there's no place to really sit. Maybe you sit on the edge of the pier. This will have a beautiful area that's gonna be kind of three purposes. You'll be able to sit on it, enjoy the lake, watch your kids. It's gonna be safety. Right now, if a
It's in the
vehicle,
red, yeah.
so if somebody had a medical emergency or something, lost control of their car, a vehicle could plow right into the beach area. And so this granite seating would block the beach area from the drive lane, and there'll be an environmental component. Cindy noted that central green feature, it'll be graded as such that will become a stormwater retention and filtration area. In addition to other features throughout the whole area, but that will serve as a way to catch the water and filter it out before it gets introduced into the lake. So, the top of the pier right now is asphalt. That was done as like a temporary fix to prevent water from getting into the pier and doing the freeze-thaw effect. That'll be removed, and there'll be beautiful pavers that'll be put on top of that. So it's gonna be a major facelift for the pier. This is arguably one of the most iconic places in the whole community. People come to Cazenovia and they only visit one or two places. This is probably one of them. I will put a little bit of a sales pitch in. We were very fortunate to get a $500,000 grant, but it has a $500,000 match. Now, a lot of that is going to be in-kind work being done by the village DPW, the paving, things like that. But the village and the town has graciously agreed to chip in, to that as well. But we would the Wetzel Foundation is also going to be making a major contribution via CACTA. But we would love to have help from the community with this to kind of get us over the top in terms of that match. So we'll be talking more and be sending out communications about that, to close that gap. It's a tremendous opportunity. That's a big grant. We were very happy to get it. And altogether, I think we're someplace in the neighborhood of investing. It's something like $1.5 million of work in that park. The seawalls were a major lift, and the village had to bond for the deeper part of those along the swim area. So this will kind of be the last stage of a huge reworking of really one of our iconic parks in the community.
Kurt, what's the gap right now, do you know, or ballpark?
I think we're someplace in the 80 to 100,000 range that we're hoping to get from various sources. Lauren's been updating that, day by day.
Sure.
So we hope to have some significant, cornerstone grants or donations with that. But, we'll probably almost do like a GoFundMe type thing, because it's something every family, we've all taken our kids down there. We've all enjoyed time at that beach. So anyway, so thanks for your support, and thank you, Cindy, for representing the village today.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? Okay, Bill. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hi, Dan Orowski from Westlake Road. I just wonder if anybody's interested in like a public mooring. I'm first time at this meeting, but it would be really fun to take the boat and just go into the village.
Well, with the mayor here, what I would say is that, so there was this, plan done, like a while ago now, like 6, 7, 8 years ago now.
Master plans.
Master
Closer
plan.
to 10 now, I think.
Closer to 10, yeah, for Lakeland Park. And part of that included a dock, a public dock for boats coming up, that wanna come into the village. We haven't secured funding yet, we haven't even begun grant writing for that yet, but that would be the next, probably what I would say the next phase and the final phase of what could be done and what they foresaw when they did the master plan for it, along with moving the pavilion, which would be nice, cause the pavilion is a great location unless you're watching a band play, cause then you're looking right into the sun in the afternoon, so they could also move that, but that was all part of in the master plan. So that would be the next phase, but not projecting it all when, cause we got a ways to go for that. It
Thank you.
takes a while between writing the grants, getting the money, securing funds, and then, and then going through all the paperwork and everything, hiring the contractor, it takes years to do it, so. But hopefully, yes, it will come someday.
Are there still be EV chargers there, any new ones or the same ones or?
Those are being upgraded.
Yeah.
And we're trying to decide if we're gonna have 2 or 4. There's 2 right now.
Right.
And we're negotiating with the grant funding agency for that. So the new ones will be faster and they'll be connected to the network so
Right.
people can pay with a credit card. And it'll be on the map so people know that they're there and if you have an EV, so that'll be good.
Yep. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Bill Snyder, it's always a pleasure to be here. This is what, the 3rd time? Can't remember, anyway. Another year of sampling, still interesting, and this is my 3rd year of sampling on Cazenovia Lake, and I continue to be amazed. I did expand, brought a few more of my classes. This was my aquatic ecology class. We wanted to do some vegetation surveys, some square meter vegetation surveys, but we got there where we would drop a weighted frame down and then we were going to snorkel and count vegetation, but we'd had several days of windy weather and the visibility was too short. But with electroshocking, some questions came up about this, why we use it. This is probably the least invasive means of sampling fish. Water itself is actually a relatively poor conductor of electricity. Still, don't take baths with your toaster. But basically, the electricity has a hard time passing through the water. Fish are great conductors of electricity, so they represent a short, and it stuns them. There's some science behind it about how much voltage, what pulse rate in this, and when you get it, if you don't have it right, yeah, you can electrocute them and really fry them. But you get it just right, and usually within seconds or within a minute, they will recover. So when we are electroshocking, I always take conductivity, we'll shock a little while and I'll make adjustments. We net the fish, we have a live well on the boat, so the fish come in, we put them in the live well, and a crew then works them up and they go back in the water. And any well-balanced electroshock, you're going to be really negligible on any mortality you see. When we trap net or seine, depending on the person that's doing it, how long you're doing, water temperature, a lot of factors. You might see 5, 10, 20% mortality on those. Something like a gill net. Gill nets are total kill fish gear. If you use a gill net, you have the expectation that every fish that is taken, is going to die. They don't all do. You've got some hardy ones out there. But again, when you see this out there, you can rest assured, we're sampling in the the least invasive, least damaging way we can, and my students are well trained to minimize that in the handling. A lot of what we did this year, part of it was just debugging the system, or creating it. I created a new workup station, had a few electrical issues to work out. That whole light issue was one loose connection from the factory, and I just tightened a little screw, and yeah, we were in the dark one out there. But several classes did go out. We did some our typical daytime samplings, which are used with the class. I took several of my crews out. One night I did take some of the Kaz Lake board members out. This was one of the night we were out. And, there's Cindy. And beautiful evening out there. And I have a hard time here. Sorry, technology. Again, I don't know. I have no recommendations on management at this point in time. I've talked to several of you about this, and my 40-some years as a fisheries biologist, this is the sort of data we make up to use in class. Just big fish, healthy, really robust, heavy fish, and the largemouth. And my students always go nuts. They've never seen. This guy is from Texas, and he has fished all over the South, and he just was out of his skull for the fish that were out there. We did see, the bass keep coming in. We're getting some really remarkable pickerel out there. This is not a walleye that we collected. By the way, that's Mariah Lavelle. Mariah Swartz now. She's out of Region 7 DEC. She's the fish biologist who is in charge of Cazenovia Lake. And she's one of my kids. Anyway, but that is a walleye that they took this spring trap netting. So you've got some in there. I'm yet to collect a single one, but you have some in there. I tried to focus. Yeah, I know I got some bass in there, but I can't help it. I love the bass. I tried to focus a little more on what I call the mesos, the middle line predators, the rock bass, the crappies, the pickerel. We don't see large numbers of black crappies, but the few we get are huge still. Big rock bass, they're out there. Now last year, for those of you that are here, there's a lot of ways we can summarize the data. I showed you some histograms of growth. This year's histograms are just carbon copies of last year's. The big thing is something we call proportional stock density. So that's where we look at the proportion of, harvestable fish, big harvestable fish, to brood stock of both predators and prey. And ideally, you want your brood stock, or out of your predators, if you can get about 40 to 60% of your predator fish, in that big harvestable, memorable class, that's good. If you can get your prey fish, 20 to 40% of them being that's good. So I calculated this year's data. This is my 2020, this is the exact same slide I showed you last year. And it hit, that doesn't happen. Statistically, that doesn't happen. And I recalculated a couple of times. So you've got a good, consistent system. That's great. We're having fun. Come on. I don't know what's happening here. I have these problems. Just to give you an idea of what I have seen out there in my 3 years: largemouth, smallmouth, black crappie, bluegill, pumpkin seed, rock bass, yellow perch, tessellated darter, just a small member of the perch family we get out there. Brown bullhead, yellow bullhead, tadpole, and margin mad toms, chain pepper white sucker, banded killifish, which are another just a small minnow-like fish. Out of the minnows, golden shiners, common shiners, spot-tailed shiners, and blunt-nosed minnow. Now the common shiners and the blunt-nosed minnows are more creek-oriented fish. Those were really minor collections. Those probably came in when you had backflow incidences, so they're not regular. The golden shiners and spot-tails are probably what is the bulk of the prey out there, like the summertime prey. I did try some minnow traps. Dave helped me set some minnow traps this year. Surface water temperature, I think, was too high. We didn't catch any. But I'm going to target those, going to borrow some forage nets from Region 7 next year, just to figure out what everybody is out there eating. A few things that have come in before, which I have not collected, of course, the walleye. But the spot fin shiners, mimic shiners, again, those are creek fish, which probably came in backflow, and those haven't been collected for 20 years. Alewife, I have no idea where they would have come from. And a 3-spine stickleback is a Lake Erie fish, and that showed up once, one specimen, and that had to have been a bait bucket introduction. And again, that was 25 years ago. So again, isn't it, Apple computers, they don't like me. So again, I really tried to start with forage baiting this year. In the surface waters, we set minnow traps, relatively shallow, and I put a glow stick in there, a light bait, which will attract them. And we got nothing. But I want to point out that, this is a lot of speculation, just, working on the data we have is surface temperatures were astronomically high this year, greater than 85 degrees. I don't know what the highest you saw, Dave, but,
It was over that,
yeah, I saw some 86 and 87 degrees. So if the water was 100% saturated with oxygen, which I can guarantee you it never is, it would have been at 7 parts per milligrams per liter. But it had to have been at those temperatures. That oxygen, that water is going to be down below 6 parts per million, which you get below 6 and the fish are going to be uncomfortable. Our surface, the surface sampling, the shallow water sampling, we do the electroshocking during that time was fairly light. The evening that I had you folks out, we really didn't get we got a lot of fish, but not the abundance I typically see. The fall sampling I did with the students, numbers are back up again. And again, when I was out with Dave on the fish finder, vast quantities of fish laying deep. So the warm water was probably that. I tried one nighttime gill net set of where I was using gill nets with really small mesh, so I would only catch forage fish, and we set that down off the rock island, and I got one little yellow perch, one little pumpkin seed, and one teensy tiny little smallmouth bass, and so negligible data. So trying to figure out where I want to go from here. We've got a great picture of the big fish that we have out there. I would like to get more summer sampling in, but vary techniques. Okay, the electroshocker is only good in shallow water. We do get some small fish with it, but to try to get out into other waters. Use some forage nets in the open water. I want to continue with the minnow traps and light baiting, but maybe set them at deeper depths, do some seining. I would like to get a better idea of the prey base and the young messos. There has to be good reproduction on the bluegills, the sunfish, pumpkin seeds, the rock bass in these because we're seeing them, but I'm not collecting them yet. And then I'd like, again, actually getting into the stomach of these bass and seeing what they're eating. Traditional stomach content analysis is where you catch them and cut them open and remove their stomach. And I'd not like to do that. It's excision. I tried a technique called gastric massage where you sort of cradle them and you start at the back and you gently massage them and work them to give up what they've eaten. And I don't have the touch. So one of my colleagues at the college, we are creating a fish stomach pump where we'll have a cannula that we can insert down and push water in. And that technique is, I've never done it, but we're going to try that. I'm working, I think I'm really close to getting a pit tagger, which is a passive integrated transponder, a small wire tag that you would embed in the bone of the snout of these fish that would give each fish an identifiable number, and just for a new direction, so that way we can, if we recapture fish, we can get an idea of actual growth, see if there's movements, just a new technique. It'd be a great opportunity for my students, and we can also see what's going on. Probably one of my big goals here is that I'd like to get it done this summer. I don't know if it will happen. For both of our bachelor's degrees, the students have to do an internship. And I have one student who's very good, who's very interested in fisheries, and I would like to get him to do his 400-hour internship on Cazenovia Lake, where that he could coordinate these, do a lot more sampling, and do all of these analyses. Now, there's a lot going on. There is an MOU between Cass Lake and Madison County for the use of the electroshocking boat and what will be provided. And they're doing a lot, like the sea slap water testing in this. But if we could go, if you consider that, you consider like the fisheries data I'm doing, the water quality data, all of these various things, the vegetation data, we've got a lot of separate activities. And one thing I would see this intern doing is coordinating with the people doing that work so that we could get one consolidated database, one consolidated report could come out that would profile and bring these in. We could do a much more in-depth analysis of what's out there if we have all of this various data to look at, if that makes sense, kind of? Okay. My big holdup there is we had a vice president, a provost, who was sure to put out money that, the past couple of years, we've been able to host our own interns. Typically, our interns are out working for the DEC and other agencies. She has left, and so I'm waiting to see if there's going to be funds that I can get an intern for this summer. So, SUNY system, they're flush with money, right? That won't be a problem. And a few other things that that are on my mind that I would like to try to do. I was talking with Jim Everhard one day. Now that guy, there's a retired fisheries biologist, and what does he do every day? He goes fishing. I like that idea. I hope that's in my future. But he was telling, we were talking about features in the lake, and pretty much all of our inland lakes, the bathymetric charts you get on your fish finders and everything, all of that was extracted, comes from the old DEC contour maps, which were people in boats dropping plumb bobs and stuff. So there, and I have recognized bathymetric discrepancies, anomalies out there, like the Rock Island does not appear on these. So a project, whether it gets done this summer, but I could see one of my students, because we work heavily with geographic information systems, is I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can coordinate, tie together the depth data and the location data off of the sonar and produce a high quality map out of the lake. That's an idea. I teach some geospatial, so it'd be a good project there. But otherwise, close. 1 minute over. I teach. I can't help it.
It is a record for me.
Thank you. I try. Any questions on it? My students laugh when I do that. I don't do it for laughs. I'm just.
So the funniest thing was 2 weeks ago, Friday night, he sends me, he goes, Dave, where are we meeting tomorrow for the summit? 2 weeks ago. I said, you're way off, man. You have 2 weeks left.
And I want to point out that, in all my professional career and all the time I was a college student, never, ever, ever had a report, an activity, or presentation done in 2 weeks.
That's what he said. He said, at least I'm done.
It's been kind of hectic. Anyway, any questions on the lake? Folks, it's just incredible. I had never sampled this. I had stayed out of Thad's backyard. The only fishing I'd ever done was when I take my kids down here for panfish. And, I can't make up this kind of data. I'm just so impressed.
Where's Rock Island?
Rock Island?
Sunken Island?
The Sunken
Okay.
Island.
Where the borders
I just
are.
never heard it called that.
Okay.
Yeah, 62 years.
I didn't know, I had never heard it had a name, either. Sunken Island.
I guessed that.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Sunken
that's
Island.
okay.
I'll correct myself.
Can you talk about the value of the electro fishing boat? Because, we were all involved in getting that. And, what does it do for you? How are you using it?
It has opened up an entirely new world of sampling for my students. Back in the 1980s, I taught in Ohio, and we had a very rudimentary electroshocking boat there. Electroshocking, is the sampling technique that is preferred, anywhere you go in fisheries. It's what we prefer. It allows us to sample a lot of areas that you can't get in otherwise. So, by having this boat, the students are getting, we have backpack shockers, a little backpack unit that we can do small creeks, but it can't get out on water like this, okay? Can't do big, deep areas. So, not only do the students gain a lot of valuable experience operating, the electrical system, understanding how it works, so they have those competencies when they enter the workforce, but they're, excuse me, they're getting more boating experience. Hopefully this next summer, if I can get more of this rolling, this will be not just an electrofishing boat, but a research platform, so that we can do more of our water quality testing. We can do other forms of sampling, such as drift nets, trap nets, and use it for that. But, I'd spent almost 30 years at Morrisville, trying to figure out how I could get one of these. And, through the state system, it was just, it was a pipe dream. Scott Prindle down, he's the fish biologist, the regional fish head down at Region 7. They were getting a new electroshocking boat, and we spent 2 years trying to figure out how to, it's the state, how to get it transferred, their old one from his part of the state to my part of the state, and change the inventory. New York government is really good at building these little impenetrable walls, in case folks have never picked up on that sort of thing. And, he was willing to give us that, and then probably for, a few $1,000s, we could bring it up to operational status. And then to have something like this, and, I do feel guilt over my good friend at York's, and the effort that he put into it and what happened to the college. I felt like I was robbing the dead. But, it's just inconceivable. In my career at any university I've studied or worked at, or research firm I worked for, I have never worked off of a boat this nice.
So Bill, if I could add one thing, so part of the Lake Association's and the county's thought process behind getting it was, with this work he's doing, it enables us to just keep track of the lake, because the one thing where we've done a good job with the town and the village is the weeds and, looking at other aspects of the lake. We've never looked at the fish population. Ultimately, that's the bellwether of how the lake is doing. So with all this extra data that we can collect, we can get ahead of problems if we see something change. So that was really the thought process behind it, and this is great data, right? It's just stuff that we need to understand, so that we know that at the bottom of the ecosystem, things are still good.
And I saw Mariah, she was up at the college at our advisory board meeting. I guess that was only a week ago Friday. And she was very thrilled at the data that I'm taking, because it's far more than what she has the opportunity to take on their typical DEC sampling schedule. So, we're going to be data sharing with the DEC, but again, it is created an inroad for SUNY Morrisville, for us to be here, to be on the lake. And again, one of the biggest outcomes that I see is that if I can get a regular intern, who could just, what am I trying to say, collate, concatenate all of this data. You guys have, I've been involved with a lot of lake associations through the years too around here, and most of them, there's a lot of infighting, and they don't have much direction. And you guys really are a model for what you get done, and how close you work with the town. I'm not trying to blow wind up your skirt or anything, I'm serious. But a lot is being done, and again, if we can just bring everything together, we'll have really an unparalleled picture of the lake. And again, if we see, changes in the lake, we can catch them early. Oh, one other thing I wanted to throw out, I'm also the frog bit puller, so if if any of you are in the north end of the lake and through like August, and you see a muddy guy with a canoe full of pondweed, that's me. I only pulled about half, you know, we always hire 2 people now, but I only pulled about half the amount of frog bit this year as I did last year, okay? Now that's the good news. I'm speculating it's water temperature, because if you look at, frog bit's a northern species, we are on the very southern end of the range. So I'm wondering if that might be it. That's the good news. The bad news is the lower water levels prevented me from getting into a lot of the areas up there. So I know there's frog bit in there. Areas I pulled last year I couldn't get to this year. But the good news is with the lower lake levels, a lot of that dried out. Hopefully it would kill a lot of the frog bit plants, and being lower, hopefully all those turions will freeze out this winter. But you know, the frog bit is in a state of control. And again, I think some of you probably saw it in the newsletter that went out, that if you see it anywhere else in the lake, all right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks.
Good morning. I'm just going to switch to a different computer here. I'll take you just a moment. Yep. Okay. Wait. This is not showing what's on my screen here.
Yeah.
Where's Dan?
I just
This
saw.
was working just before we started.
Expand the screen, maybe?
Where'd Dan go? He was just here. Trouble.
So, you know,
Yeah.
you have the mirror phone.
I don't know where there's a firewall.
Because we know how to do it on the Mac.
Do we have presentation on any other device?
On mine.
Okay, let's swap out.
But he had some.
Had a lot of animations that I really like.
Oh, okay, then we'll figure it out. Let's find whatever the version, Windows version setting is.
Turn on computer.
Tell a joke.
Any general questions out there?
Sam, who put in the buoys?
Dave does.
And Dan.
No, I mean,
And
initially.
Dan, and Dan. You mean on,
Fight over
on the
that?
sunken island?
Yeah,
Yeah,
who put them in?
Dave.
So Lake Association?
Yeah, we put him in.
Thank you.
Right, yeah. How-
Yeah,
For
thank you.
years, nobody wanted to put them in
Oh, I
and be
know.
liable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He puts them in and takes them out.
I have a question.
And Dan's son, I think,
Sam?
helps.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who was in charge
Yeah,
of the
you'll
boat
have to,
launch at the
use
Lake,
this
Lakewood
for
Park?
reference. You're not-
That
I can do that.
actual
I can do that.
boat launch. that's
The
right
actual
there?
boat launch, that's the village.
But nobody ever brings them in the winter.
Oh, it's right there.
Alright.
And it's gotten a lot of damage, and I called the village and asked, and they don't know who owns it.
You mean the village ramp?
No, the actual plastic boat launch thing that's in the water, in the creek,
Okay.
next to,
Oh.
yeah, where you put your kayak in and get into the lake.
She's talking about.
Lake Carpenter's Barn.
Yeah.
Next to
Oh,
the old
Lake
hay
Land.
barn.
That still would be the village.
Lakeland Park.
Yeah.
Lakeland Park?
Yeah,
Lakeland Park, yeah.
I'll ask.
Because I've asked numerous people and nobody knows who owns it. And nobody will take it out in winter and it's getting bubbled and deformed, so somebody spent a lot of money on that.
You're talking, yeah.
Yeah, somebody spent a lot of money on that, and I check it every year before these
Yeah.
summer fest.
You should be able to pull it up on the beach.
I know, I can see with the DPW, it's over on the side.
By
so
Carpenter's
there's
Barn.
no-
Yeah, there's a
right, by Carpenter's
controversy on
Barn.
whether the village owns it or the Erie Canal System owns
No,
it.
they don't know, they don't, it's the village.
They don't know
Yeah,
that.
definitely the village.
We have a bunch of
I
those.
called them.
You're right, they get damaged. At Willowbank, we bring them in and have a bubbler around them.
Yeah, cause that one's getting really
Yeah.
damaged.
One quick question.
Yeah.
Are you going to consider helping out Carpenter's Pond the next time you treat Cazenovia Lake for weeds?
No,
No?
no.
Why not?
Because we barely get permission to do what we're doing.
All right.
You wanna bring that up again as,
But Bill,
at the
this
end?
lake doesn't flow into there at all, right? That's like village drainage and then into Carpenter's Pond, right?
Well, it's pretty, I've never seen so many weeds in Carpenter's Pond.
Right.
crazy.
I was gonna say, cause if they treat the lake, it would come, part of it would
Part of it
come
will
into-
filter in.
But I don't
Yeah.
think, I think Carpenter's Pond, there's the burn between the two, so I don't think.
It's also private property,
they
right?
talk, and it's private, right,
CPF.
so, yeah, that's right, and it's and that's CPF, yeah, so.
Okay. Good morning, my name's Emmett Owens. I'm a retired professional engineer, and I'm on the board of directors of the Lake Association. This morning I'm going to talk about watershed management. So we'll start off just with a map of the Cazenovia Lake watershed. Excuse me. That's the area shown in yellow that surrounds the lake itself. And the basic idea here is that surface runoff and groundwater coming from the watershed area shown in yellow drains into Cazenovia Lake. That defines the watershed. So if we kind of look at the watersheds a little differently, there's Cazenovia Lake. It has a surface area of 1.8 square miles. There's the watershed of Cazenovia Lake that we just looked at on the previous map. Now it's shown again in this kind of a schematic. If we move to the outlet of Cazenovia Lake, the drainage area, the watershed area at that point is just the sum of those two. Basically, rainfall that falls either in the watershed or onto the lake surface itself ends up in the outflow. The drainage area there is 10.5, just the sum of those two. Looking upstream to Upper Chittenango Creek. So that has a drainage area of 36 square miles, and that creek merges with the lake outlet channel right in the village. So if we move just slightly downstream to Mill Street, the drainage area at that point is just the sum of the lake outlet and the Upper Chittenango Creek. And just to illustrate that as we move downstream on Chittenango Creek, the watershed area increases more. I've just shown the watershed area at a point of interest downstream of the falls, between the falls and Chittenango. There's a gauging station that's operated by the United States Geological Survey. The only place in this watershed where the stream flow in the creek is actually directly measured. If you're interested in it, there's a website where you can get the data in near real time. Okay, excuse me. What is watershed management for a lake? Put simply, this consists of programs and projects that serve to control, reduce the quantity of pollutants flowing into the lake from its watershed. And so there's kind of two parts to this. There's the plan that identifies these programs, and then there's, following the development of the plan, is the actual implementation of those steps that would result in improvements to the lake. So the plan is basically, the final result of a plan is just a document that describes the steps that would be taken, the components of the plan. Of course, following that, the real work gets done is the implementation of the plan. So here's a list of some watershed management plans for lakes in upstate New York. And I just wanted to highlight a couple features here. The one at the top of the list is the existing management plan for Cazenovia Lake. We'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. Down the list is Oneida Lake, Cazenovia Lake is within the larger Oneida Lake watershed, a water body that's fairly similar to Cazenovia is DeRuyter Reservoir. That has a watershed plan that's been completed. Some of the other Finger Lakes are listed down below. Something that affects the way these plans are developed is whether the lake is or is not a public drinking water supply. Our Cazenovia Lake, of course, is not. Neither is Oneida Lake or DeRuyter Reservoir. So for the drinking water lakes, these plans can be more complicated. I'll just point out that at the bottom of this list are some kind of, you might say, old watershed management plans. Onondaga Lake the planning for that was done many years ago, and that plan has largely been implemented now. A similar one is Cannonsville Reservoir, which is one of the reservoirs in the Catskill Mountains that supplies drinking water to New York City. That also has a watershed management plan that's been in place for many years and has been implemented. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. The other thing I've shown here is a number of these plans have the symbol 9E following them. So those plans have been developed following a framework that has been recommended and is encouraged for use by the New York DEC. This is a relatively recent development. So all of these 9E plans have largely been developed in the last 6 to 8 years, something like that. So a common goal of all of these plans, all of these 9 plans, the one thing that it's a common feature of all of those is their primary target is to reduce phosphorus from the watershed. All of those plans have this as a goal, including the Cazenovia Lake Management Plan. So what is this 9-element plan? The 9 elements are basically the 9 components or features of these watershed management plans that are required to be done if the plan is to be designated as a quote-unquote 9-element plan. So this includes steps to identify the sources of pollution, identify the goals that we're trying to reach as a part of the management plan, and then practices that will achieve the reductions, estimates of the cost, involvement of local stakeholders in the development of the plan, coming up with a schedule with milestones. These are all required components of watershed management plans that meet the designation as a 9-element plan. So these 9-element plans have some advantages that I've listed here. The primary ones are that because the regulatory agencies, the DEC, support these, if you complete a 9-element plan, you kind of get you're kind of guaranteed some level of support from the regulatory agencies, some buy-in that you've done a good job, and it also increases the likelihood of receiving financial aid for the management plan if you've completed it under this 9E designation. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Cazenovia plan. So this was a document and a plan that was prepared about 10 years ago at the State University of New York, SUNY at Oneonta, and just going to look at some features here. So It was developed 10 years ago. The work was largely done by a graduate student at SUNY Oneonta. And the primary issue that was identified in this plan was aquatic plants and algae. That was identified as the major water quality problem in Cazenovia Lake. And the management of that problem was, that was recommended in this plan was controlling the inputs of phosphorus to the lake. Phosphorus being the nutrient that's required for plant growth in the lake. And so if you can reduce the level of phosphorus, you can reduce the level of both of aquatic plants and algae in the lake. Okay, so we have the Lake Association has followed this plan. We have a 5-year plan to reduce nutrients and sediment and contaminants from the watershed. The town, as was described earlier, has septic regulations that will reduce, that are targeted to reduce phosphorus inputs to the lake from septic systems. Other statewide regulations that banned the presence of phosphorus in lawn fertilizers and in household detergents. Those are steps that will reduce the level of phosphorus coming into Cazenovia Lake. So this plan really was a good plan, but I would just like to conclude this discussion by posing the question, do we need an updated plan for Cazenovia Lake? The existing plan is 10 years old. It was developed by a graduate student. There was really not a lot of involvement by professionals in the science or engineering professionals. And when you read through it, there are some gaps in this study. So I guess at this point, I'm not going to do anything more about, or I'm not going to say anything more about an updated plan other than just to open up the idea of an updated plan as something that can be discussed in forums like this in the future. All right. So now a little bit about more about phosphorus in the lake. So Bill talked earlier about the potential need for better bathymetric data for the lake, and that is probably true. I don't know how old this bathymetric map is, but it's pretty old. But it's in common use, including by me. So let's look at some conditions here. So this green area shows the entire surface area of Cazenovia Lake, and that's the size of that area, 1,164 acres. Let's look at some components of that. This blue area is the portion of the total area of the lake where the water depth is less than 10 feet deep. So 10 feet is probably around a correct number that describes where the portion of the lake where rooted aquatic plants can grow. They can't grow. What I'm showing here is that they can't grow in water that is greater than 10 feet deep. So in that portion of the lake, roughly 26% of the total area is where macrophytes, rooted aquatic plants, and algae can grow together. In the remainder of the lake, the water's too deep for the aquatic plants. The only thing that can grow there is algae. Okay, so let's look down a little bit deeper in the lake. This blue area shows where the depth is greater than 26 feet. 26 feet is the average depth of the thermocline in the lake. An imaginary line in the depth in the lake where warm water exists above it, cold, dark water, cold water that receives no sunlight is below it. And so let's look at the next All right, so this blue area is the lower waters of the lake. The red area is where algae grow. And algae are small, are particles, basically, organic particles that settle in the water column of the lake. And so here's a schematic of the lower part of the water column and sediment in this deep part of the lake. So what's happening here continuously through the year is that algae that are growing in the upper layer of the lake settle down and accumulate at the bottom of the lake. And that accumulation is a constant process, and it occurs in layers. So as you move down in the sediment gets older. So this might be 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and so on, that general idea. So when this algae is deposited at the sediment, it begins to undergo decomposition. So there's microbes in the sediment that decompose that particulate organic material, and in particular the particulate organic phosphorus that's a part of that algae, and it transforms it, into a dissolved inorganic form that can then diffuse through the sediment layer and into the water column. So, and that dissolved inorganic form of phosphorus is the form that the algae can use directly for growth. So this is essentially a recycle mechanism where the phosphorus that was used to grow algae at one point gets recycled through the sediment, released into the water column, and can be used again by algae to grow. So, some of the phosphorus that's contained in this algae gets recycled in that manner. Some actually gets buried and gets so deep in the sediments that it can't come back to the surface and react to the water column. So this process of decomposition and release of phosphorus has negative impacts for the lake. It acts as an internal source of phosphorus that can be used to grow algae again. So, and there's other downsides for that. That decomposition process also consumes oxygen from the water column. And when the oxygen gets too low, it affects the fisheries, as Bill talked about earlier. So the takeaway from this is the watershed is the origin of the phosphorus that's released from the sediments. And the real takeaway is we're talking about controlling sources of phosphorus from the watershed. The source of all the phosphorus that we've talked about here, the place of origin of all of this phosphorus is the watershed. This internal source of phosphorus acts as a source of phosphorus to the lake, but the origin of that phosphorus is the watershed. So we can control watershed management. If we can control the input of phosphorus from the watershed, we have the ability to change all of the sources of phosphorus in the lake. Okay. Just another concept regarding the effect of phosphorus on the lake. So this curve shows a relationship between the phosphorus concentration in the water column of the lake and the rate of growth of plants and algae in the lake. And this shows the relationship. So this curve could be, experiments can be done in the laboratory to actually determine the shape of this curve and to actually put numbers on these axes here. So you could say what the rate of growth would be for a certain level concentration in the lake. But this is just a schematic used for discussion here. So we can, whoops, where are we? All right, so many of you may be familiar with this the concept of trophic status, that there's these four states that lakes can be categorized into: oligotrophic, mesotrophic, eutrophic, and hypereutrophic. So generally, as we move from left to right here, we have increasing level of aquatic plants, increasing presence of harmful algal blooms, decreasing levels of dissolved oxygen in the water column of the lake. Generally, degraded water quality as we move from left to right across this plot. So here are some local lakes, most of the lakes that were listed earlier where we had watershed programs that fall under these, into these four categories. Skinny Atlas and Lake George are generally very clean lakes. They're in the oligotrophic category. Atisco and Owasco, two of the Finger Lakes, the Eastern Finger Lakes, are in the mesotrophic category. Back in the 1980s, Onondaga Lake was way over on the right here. Hypereutrophic. So basically, being out here, what this says is this curve is basically a flat line. So if Onondaga Lake was, say, out here, you could do a lot of management to decrease the phosphorus concentration in the lake that would really have no impact on water quality. So a hypereutrophic lake is sometimes described as nutrient saturated, which means the lake has so much phosphorus and nitrogen and other nutrients that you've really got to take a big chunk out of what's coming in to start to have some impact. Presently, Onondaga Lake is now a eutrophic lake. Similarly, Cannonsville Reservoir in the 1980s was a eutrophic reservoir. It has been transformed into a mesotrophic reservoir. Both of those transformations took a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of diligence, generally. But so these are kind of examples of, if you undertake a big project, you can have some measurable, significant results. So what about us here in Cazenovia? There's Cazenovia Lake. It's a mesotrophic lake. We're somewhere in this range right here. So the real point I'd like to make here is to look what is the slope of this line here, to use a mathematical phrase and concept. If we draw a tangent to this curve at this point, it's got a slope. What does that mean? It means that if we undertake a management, if we implement a management program that reduces the phosphorus concentration in the lake, it's going to have an impact on the growth. And it could be just one small project, like the one that Kurt the mayor referred to, where there's a detention pond that's being constructed in Lakeside Park. That's going to have some effect on moving in this direction on the curve. It's going to have some water quality implications. So this is the concept that I'm trying to show here, is that every little bit will help. Every small management program that's implemented, the cumulative effect of those will be the improvement of water quality in the lake. So don't ever think that a project is too small to really have any impact, because it will, if it's effectively implemented. So that's the takeaway here. So we can, with adopting a watershed management program that targets phosphorus, though those programs work. All right, so now enough about planning and science here. I want to talk about a watershed management project that's about to be implemented here on Cazenovia Lake. So one possible way that the impact of a watershed could be reduced would be to just take the stream that drains that watershed and somehow remove it from the lake. Not a very practical idea. If you're going to move a stream, where are you going to move it to? So this is kind of on its face is an impractical idea. But that's what we're going to do in Cazenovia Lake. And we're going to do this by removing an old dam. So let's take a look at this project. So this is the village of Cazenovia. I hope you all recognize this. It's got some landmarks here. I don't really know why Dunkin' Donuts on there, but Booties is there, so.
The gas.
So what's highlighted here are our stream channels. So here's the lake over here. Here's the lake outlet channel. That merges with Chittenango Creek, the upper part of the creek, and then that flows down under the Mill Street Dam, under Route 20, and then down to the falls into Chittenango. So those are let's look at those. So, okay, I'm going the wrong way. Here, dams. So this is the location of the Mill Street Dam. It's just downstream it's a dam on Chittenango Creek, right by Mill Street. It's right out behind the library here. So this is the dam that we're planning to remove. Farther upstream is the lake outlet, or the upper lake dam. Okay. So during a high stream flow event, when we've got lots of water coming down upper Chittenango Creek from the upper watershed, that 36 square mile watershed I showed earlier, what can happen is that the level of the creek in this region between the two dams gets quite high. And if it gets high enough, what happens is, whoops, what am I doing? There we go. Some of the water that comes down here goes to the right and goes down Chittenango Creek. Some of it flows backward through this lake outlet channel and into the lake. And that is a problem, because this, that creates a new source of inflow into Cazenovia Lake. This dam was built 170 years ago specifically to create this backflow condition, and it was built that long ago to help support the operation of the old Erie Canal. This being the old Erie Canal, that had the wooden packet boats that were pulled by mules along the way. That was closed 100 years ago. So this dam has basically served no useful purpose for the last 100 years. And but it's still causing these backflow events. Okay, so effectively, during these runoff events, this 36 square mile drainage area of the upper Chittenango Creek becomes part of the lake watershed. Water that's flowing, water and associated pollutants that are coming out of this upper watershed It doesn't, some of it goes right and goes down Chittenango Creek, some of it flows into the lake. Data that we've collected on the water in this lake during these backflow events shows that this water is enriched in phosphorus and suspended solids compared to the water that flows into the lake from its watershed. So that's the real problem here. This is another source of phosphorus to the lake. So that's the takeaway from this. So what have we done? In the spring of 2023, the village received a New York State grant to do a phase 1 study of this problem. We just wanted to kind of make sure that what we believed was happening, which is that this Mill Street Dam is causing these backflow events. We wanted to confirm that and to kind of quantify it. So we wrote a request for proposals, and we chose Gomez and Sullivan from the firms that submitted proposals. They started work in the summer of 2023. They finished their study in this past spring. This is the cover sheet of their report. So some of you probably were here about a year ago in December of last year when Gomez and Sullivan in this room came in and presented the results of their report. And they found that removing the dam would dramatically reduce the occurrence of these backflow events. So that gave us the confidence that we should really go forward and get this dam removed. I'll just mention here that this project has the support basically of various groups. There's really no organized groups that have opposed this. The dam is owned by the New York State Canal Corporation. They very much want this dam to come down. It's been sitting there basically doing nothing for 100 years, yet they're responsible for it. They need to maintain it, and they really don't want to do that anymore. All right, so based on this study, the village submitted a grant application last spring to get the money to take the dam down. And lo and behold, we got the grant. In September, we found the state notified the village that the village had been selected. This is a copy of the website that announced this. There's the list of projects, and on the list is roughly $1.4 million for the village to do the planning, to carry out the dam removal, and then to do the actual work to complete the dam removal. So what's going to happen here is, this just basically shows what I think I've said earlier, that with the dam being removed, we can stop. We don't have, in doing watershed planning, we won't have to worry about this area down here. We can forget about the 36 square miles and just concentrate on the 8.7 square miles of the lake's watershed itself. All right, so that's what this. All right, so where do we go from here? Upcoming tasks. This is what's going to be happening over the next 3 years to remove the dam. So we're going to prepare a request for proposals, solicit proposals from engineering consultants. That's going to be done next spring. That consultant will then carry out a final engineering design of this project. And so really a lot of that design is really going to be, how are they going to carry out the demolition of this existing dam. There's going to be some rehabilitation of the dam site following that. And that's all going to be designed and organized and completed around July of 2027. There's certainly a lot of permits that we need to get approvals from the regulatory agencies. One of those is going to be how to make sure that Chittenango Creek in this area is a designated trout stream. So you have to be very careful about disturbing the channel of the creek during certain parts of the year. So I'm sure we'll get a permit from the DEC that has requirements for how the construction, the demolition will take place to avoid any negative impacts on the fishery. So then, in 2028, we'll solicit bids from contractors to actually carry out the work. So we're looking at June, summer to early fall of 2028, where the actual demolition will take part. As we did with the first phase, we're gonna have regular meetings throughout this time period. So I'm sure at this summit meeting next year, you'll hear an update on how this project is proceeding. There'll be other meetings. So basically, within about 3 years, this dam should be gone, and we will have completed what I've to kind of circle back on how I started this presentation. This is going to be a project that will result in a decrease in the inflow of phosphorus to Cazenovia Lake, which will be a step in the direction of improving lake water quality. So, thank you for your attention. Any questions? Yes.
What's involved in doing the update of the management plan that you referred to, and what would the cost be?
So I did some investigation in that. So the management plan development that probably is most similar to, or would be most similar to Cazenovia Lake, is the one that was done for DeRuyter Lake. It's roughly the same size and has kind of a similar. As I understand it, that plan development cost about $60,000. The one for Skinny Atlas Lake, I think, was around $500,000. So, if we were to, decide to follow that 9-element framework, we could potentially get some state aid to complete that project.
Let me add one thing. Because we are in the lake watershed itself, we are technically in that 9-element plan. So from a funding standpoint, that would be a checkbox that we already hit. Now, Margot said on all these calls from the 9-element plan, to be honest with you, they didn't really consider Cazenovia Lake in their plan, which I think was an oversight and a mistake. We brought it up to them many times, but it kind of fell on deaf ears. But from a funding standpoint, like I said, we can check the fact that we do have a 9-element plan, even though there's no recommendations for our lake. So it's kind of a good thing, bad thing.
Yes.
Any estimates for the impact of this pushing us leftward on that curve?
That question could be answered, but it would require doing a significant amount of collecting of additional data. So that a new watershed management plan could potentially be designed to answer that question. And it could be designed to answer a lot of other questions. I haven't heard it at the forum this year, but I recall the past few forums that I've attended, a question that was asked was, what if we abandon septic systems all around the lake and replace and construct sewers all around the lake? Replace all the in-place septic systems with a sewer system, so that the wastewater from all the homes in the watershed would be sent to the town's wastewater treatment plant. That's that's similar to what you asked about. That question could be answered if, in a new watershed management plan. Yep.
Sort of two related questions. Is it possible to get the engineering report on the dam renewal that was just completed? Is that available
Absolutely.
on the website or something? And
We
related to
could
that.
put it on the website, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah, or if you give me your name, I can send it to you myself.
And related to that, did they not look at nutrient impacts of dam removal? Did they not consider phosphorus in that
No,
report?
no. We considered trying to put that into that project. We got an $80,000 grant to fund this project. We felt that was not enough money to go that next step and look at water quality. So it just was limited just to water quantity.
Greg, we do have sample data. We have sample data of normal conditions of phosphorus levels, TSS, during a backflow, and we compare that to non-backflow events. And we also compare it to other watershed runoffs during the event. So we have a lot of the raw data which shows the impact of a backflow.
We may have a student that'll analyze it for you.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
Yes?
Yeah, how many backflow events are there in a typical year? And is there anything that could be done before the dam comes down to alleviate those effects of those at all?
I would say on average, there's 3, 4, 5 events per year. And, but they tend to be, the bigger the event, the greater the magnitude and the greater the duration of one of these episodes of backflow. So it's somewhere in that range, but it's all dependent on how many big storms do you get in any given year.
So I can add to that too. So we've been working with the Canal Corp. They're removing the gates of the Mill Street Dam, so there's no impediment to, well, there's still impediment, but there's less impediment to water
Yeah,
flowing downstream.
in other words, you're opening the door, but you
Yeah,
haven't gotten rid of the wall yet.
So we used to get around maybe 10 a year, but we've reduced that now to, like you said, 3, 4, depends on the year and the rain and the runoff and when it happens. There's a lot of factors in this right now. We saw the lake come up a foot in the last month because of the rain. It's been really rough.
And we care about the lake, and so this backflow condition is I guess you could say it's the primary motivation for doing this dam removal, but there's other things. For one, this is a 170-year-old dam that has not received any basic maintenance for the last 100 years. Why? Because, the Canal Corporation has a priority list of where they're gonna spend their money on maintenance, and they're not gonna spend money on this dam because it serves them no useful purpose. It's just sitting there. It hasn't served a useful purpose since the Erie Canal closed 100 years ago. There's a basic safety issue here too, that this, sooner or later, this dam is just we'll get a big event like like Jimmy was talking about, and it'll wash away, or it'll,
Maybe we could help them out, with
Sledgehammers.
It'll permanently close the waterway. It'll collapse.
Real quick, the other element to this is that we're trying to restore the stream back to its natural habitat,
Right,
so we'll have
yeah,
trout
right.
passage, it's a fish passage. If you guys are interested, go up and look at dam removals, and you'll see before and after pictures. It's incredible how much better. It's kind of a countrywide thing to remove old
Stand out
dams
west,
that are
yeah.
not needed. Go look at the pictures. It's incredible the improvement in the ecosystem after a dam is removed. It's not needed.
Just as a point of clarification, the town mandated septic tank pump and inspection isn't just for waterfront properties, it's the entire watershed.
right.
And number two, that only looks at one part of the anatomy of a septic system. I recommend a dye test during the appropriate time of the year that will look at the rest of the anatomy. But it also is required when there's a real estate transfer.
Yes.
Is there any regulation in the town of Cazenovia for the amount of fertilizer that can be applied on a lawn per year, frequency? Is there any regulation of that?
I do not believe so.
Because that's, you know, right behind phosphorus is going to be nitrate loading, and half of every bag of fertilizer that goes in a lawn goes into the groundwater or surface runoff.
Yeah, I mean, there's not, those regulations don't, am I correct, Jimmy?
I think it's just phosphorus that's regulated.
That'll be a big fight, but that's something to consider.
Right. And as I've been following what they're doing in the Skaneateles watershed, they have information sheets on their website that talk about, that would encourage homeowners to minimize their fertilizer use on their property, but there's no requirements, which I think is your question. So, and Skaneateles is a much more at-risk system than Cazenovia because it's an unfiltered drinking water supply. Yes.
I can't resist the temptation to ask you a question that you got to answer.
This is my wife.
But I was wondering, when you say that curve, you know, shoving things to the left, Bill mentioned that the surface water of the lake is higher than ever, and that the oxygen concentration is going down. So is phosphorus affected by climate change? If it's getting warmer and warmer, does it have different effects on phosphorus than it would in a cooler lake with more oxygen? I don't know.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
The increase in water temperature will slightly increase the solubility of the phosphates, but slightly. The biggest thing is that the increase in water temperatures will increase the basal metabolic rate of the entire ecosystem, so the biological functions. What goes, right, like I said, right behind phosphorus is going to be nitrate. When these nutrients are available to plants, even if they can't utilize them immediately, plants will have luxury uptake. So, you know, for instance, you know, plants can be out there sucking the stuff up. If the temperature goes up, their rate of reproduction increases. We'll get these algal blooms, rapid plant growth. They will outgrow their available phosphorus and nitrate. Then you'll have a die-off of plants, which causes decomposition, which can lower that. So, you know, it's the effective temperature on the phosphorus concentration would be minimal, but it will accelerate the organic cycling, you know, the phosphorus cycle and the nitrate cycle, carbon cycle in the lake, and that would be detrimental. And that actually was partially responsible, you know, a little microcosm, a little slice of that was what happened this spring of why we saw the big fish kill. We had the very warm April and everything was gearing up, and then everything shut down with the storms and that, so.
Yeah, I'll just mention about climate change. That's another common component of these 9-element watershed plans that have been taking place in the last few years. Is they almost all consider, they use models to try to estimate, to predict what the effect of climate change alone, or perhaps in combination with management activities, what the impact will be on water quality in the lake. Great.
Will the removal of the dam affect the level of the lake at all?
No, no.
I just feel like more is flowing out.
It's the other dam.
It's the other dam.
The other dam will,
The dam is
yeah,
staying.
okay, that
The
one's
dam
staying,
is
right, okay.
controls
Right.
And Canals does come in like the winter and open up those gates on the upper dam,
Right,
so they're lowering it down as much as they can.
so it kind of holds
So they do
back.
control it.
They control
It's
it.
not a
Okay.
lot, but it's.
We've got one more segment,
Yeah.
so we should move on.
Thank you.
This will be quick. I gotta switch. Oh, is that mine? Yeah. You should. So, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today. Very much appreciated. I'd also like to thank, the villages and the town's support on, this dam removal project. It's been in the works for about 5 years, so, and thank you guys for showing up. I actually wish, based on that last discussion, I wish every person on the lake and in the watershed was here to hear it, because I feel like we're preaching to the choir here, right? Thank you for coming. That's all I'll say. So I want to give you a quick update on the wetlands law update, but then also one other thing that we had talked about before. So kind of dovetailing into what Emmett was saying, right? We have the wetlands law, and that's ongoing. I'll talk about it in the next slide. But before we go there, I want to make sure everybody's aware that the town and village have had requirements in place for years that have nothing to do with this wetlands law. And these are really important because it's exactly what Emmett is talking about, which is reducing phosphorus loading to the lake. So, the first 20 feet, if you live on the lake, the first 20 feet of your shoreline, you cannot, by law, of the town and the village, you cannot do anything, you cannot have a land disturbance of that area. So that means no tree cutting, no plant cutting, you can't move soil unless you go to the town and you get a permit. And I've had to do it personally. You go through the process and, they always come up with a way to get done what you want to get done. The next thing is that expanded beyond that into the watershed, any work that you want to do, any land disturbance, again, moving soil, cutting down trees, anything like that, you are supposed to call the town and village and just have the code enforcement officer come out and just look at it and say, yeah, that's okay to cut those trees, etc. This is not to be heavy-handed. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to handle the problem that Emmett's talking about, which is reducing phosphorus loading into the lake. One tree absorbs, I don't know how many gallons, it's thousands of gallons of water a year. And so instead of that water going into the lake, it's being absorbed into that tree. So that's all part of management practices that he's talking about. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of this. It's just to protect the lake. It's not to try to limit people in terms of what they can or cannot do with the shoreline. So I just want to make people aware of that. As far as the wetlands requirements, the way the town is handling this right now is that any work that you're going to do, if you live on the lake, if you're within 100 feet of the shoreline, you've got to go to the town or the village planning board. Planning board, they'll recommend you going to the DEC and getting a jurisdictional determination. What that is a that's the DEC saying yes or no, that's a wetland. Okay, you've got to then you get that piece of paper from them, and you have to go back to the planning board, and they're going to say, okay, it's not a wetland, so you just have to go through the planning board process for the work you have done. If they do come back and they say, yes, it is a wetland, then you're going to have to also go through the DEC to get approval for whatever project you're going to do.
So Dave, can you clarify for me? I thought that the whole thing was declared a wetland in this latest round of reclassification.
So it has not, the DEC has not made an official jurisdictional determination on that. So individually, you've got to go and just, and do it right now, okay?
Okay.
So I know that's been a point of confusion the whole time. If you read the law, what's probably gonna happen, honestly guys, when we go to get the Purcell Corps approval next time, that's probably gonna kick them off and say, okay, these areas that you want to treat are wetland. It's exactly what's happening in Chautauqua Lake. So, but for now, if you're gonna do work, go to the town. They're gonna ask you to go to the DEC. They're gonna come back with a recommendation. We've had people already do that, and sometimes it's been yes, sometimes it's been no. So it's really.
If you have weeds in front of your property that are in the water, is that making you classify as a wetland?
According to the law, yes. The way the law reads now, yes. If you have any weeds in less than 6 feet of water, that classifies it as a wetland. No, I don't want to get into the details of this, but there are lawsuits going on where people are trying to exempt navigable waterways, which Cazenovia Lake is one of. Because there's a lot of information out there that the way the law was written is not well founded. So, there's some lawsuits going on about it, but to answer your question, yes. What you can do is you can hire a professional consultant to help you through the process of going to the DEC, so they can do all the legwork and write up the appropriate paperwork to submit to the DEC, and that's been done. The bottom line is, the reason why I'm bringing this up is this law is still being figured out right now. Our region is being very cool with us, I would say. They let us weed harvest last year because we actually have a wetland permit that was just renewed. So we are able to harvest, because that's a protected thing if it's a wetland. So they're being good to us right now. Other regions aren't being that way. They're getting a lot of pushback from the DEC on things. Bottom line is, protect yourself, because if you go and you do some work and it's not permitted by the DEC or the town, the DEC can come in and it can make you undo everything you did and actually make you remediate it to what it was before. So you're doubling the cost and you'll end up right back from where you started. So that's really the point of this, is just protect yourself. It's a pain in the butt, but it's a process that everybody has to and should follow. So that was all I had. Yes.
Do these regulate, is the next Priscilla feeding 2 years from now in jeopardy because of these new regulations?
We don't think so, because we already do have this wetland permit in place for certain areas of the lake. And Chautauqua, they did, once they got their wetland permits for where they wanted to treat, they could treat.
They were able to, because they were very vocal. They were, I mean,
Very vocal, yes.
Right.
But they were able to treat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other general questions or?
When are we supposed to treat this?
A year from May. A year from this upcoming May. That's
So not next summer, but the summer after.
No, 3.
2027.
2027.
So it'll be a 3-year gap.
3 years, yes. Yeah. That's the new cycle.
And we think we can get away with that. Though next summer is gonna be a little bit, won't be as good as the last two.
So we asked for patience.
Dave, if someone sees something going on around the lake that's of concern, potential concern, we don't wanna create a contentious environment with a neighbor, but what's their best step to take if they do see something of concern?
You gotta call the town or the village, depending on if it's a town or village property.
That goes with one of my questions. The marinas, private marinas, is there, you have to get a permit for those? And is that listed? Is there a list of all the marinas and they have to reapply every year?
So if somebody wants to do a private marina, there is an ability to go to the variance board.
Yeah.
And they have to show a real, it's a pretty high bar
Right,
to be able to
researching
establish
that,
one.
yeah. And I'm just curious, cause kayaking around the lake, I see everything that goes on, of course.
Right,
And
yes.
so I'm just wondering, is there a list of the permitted marinas?
There are no
There are
permitted
none.
marinas
There
except
are none.
for Willowbank and,
Brewster Inn and Willowbank.
Okay.
Those are the
That's
only
it.
two.
So there's marinas that aren't permitted.
Well, we know of one.
That's what's
Yep.
being.
We know of one, and that's what the town is
I
working on.
know someone was paying someone to stay.
Correct.
I met someone was paying.
That's right, and
keep the
that's
boat.
that's what started this whole
Yes.
law.
Yeah.
But we do know that there were gonna be at least one other paid for dock space, basically marina,
Yeah.
that because of this law, they decided not to do it.
Oh, right, that was.
So to Jimmy's point, we're stopping future things from happening.
Right,
We
there was
still
always
have-
that one on the south end of the lake, and I don't think on the corner there where 92 and 20 is. I
Yeah,
don't
so
think-
they actually were in compliance this summer.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, cause it's
So,
confusing
But I
because.
know there's less there now.
Yeah, but also because there's two docks right next to each
Yep.
other. One is to the north, it's
Yep.
a different house.
Yep, I realize
They
that,
got-
can tell
yeah.
by the lines.
Yeah.
And then I know the other one.
Yeah, which we're still working on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else?
Thanks, everybody, for
Well,
coming.
yeah, thanks for coming, we
Thank you.
appreciate it, and tell your neighbors.
Yes.